And it's hard to lead other people unless we start by leading ourselves. So let's go out to Millionaire Club member. In fact, she just earned her second million here with PPLSI. That's Miss Kai Daring.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Self, for that incredible introduction. And I'm honored to be able to share with the field today one of my favorite subjects, which is lead by example. And so who here thinks they're a leader? Go ahead and put a 1 in the chat right now if you think you're a leader. All right. For everyone else who didn't put that 1 in there, guess what? You are. You're leading yourself. And so for me, people all the time said to me, what was your biggest leadership challenge? And I had to laugh because every time it was me. I'm not kidding. Because think about it. If the opportunity is the same for everybody, the service is the same for everybody, the home office is the same for everyone, what is the only variable? That's right. It's me. And we call that the you factor. And it's a little bit reminded of when you go to a fun house as a kid and you walk in and you turn to the right and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I look pretty good right there. It's the tall, skinny mirror. You look to the left, you're like, oh, no, that's not pretty at all. And that's what I feel like. Sometimes I look great and sometimes I'm like, oh, that was not pretty at all. And my mom used to say a great line that said, everywhere you are, there you are. And so I tried to do it my way. I really looked in that funhouse mirror and it was not pretty. And so I realized to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower first. That's number 1. And so I had to get coachable. I had to understand the system, develop some skills, and then implement them with a compounding effect over time where that consistency actually led to results. And once you had some results, under your belt, you were worthy now of being followed. And and we really want duplication. So it's not about just one following you, but again, a lot of folks. And so how does that happen? Well, if you're leading and no one's following, it's been said you're going for a walk. And leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, according to John C. Maxwell. So what does it require to be able to have self-leadership? Well, I think, in my opinion, it's just really oversimplified 2 things. One is discipline. Think about it. At your job, how disciplined did you have to be? Not very disciplined, because if you didn't show up, you didn't get paid. If you were late, you got written up. They told you when you could leave, when you could go to the bathroom, how many days a year you could be sick. And in my opinion, that wasn't too much fun. I never want to be under the thumb of someone else. So I realized if I didn't discipline myself in this business, I was going to be disciplined by someone else. And that someone else could range from a boss, the government, Social Security at your retirement, and none of that looked very good to me. And so I realized that discipline was really important to be able to manage yourself. Now, it's easy to beat the masses, and I say that because so few people are really trying. If you just work and do the things we're going to share with you here today, it's going to work out for you over time. And my best example I can give you is Jerry Seinfeld, of really discipline, consistency over time. It was said that Jerry Seinfeld wrote a joke every single day. To this day, he still writes one, whether he's sick, whether he's on vacation, he writes one joke a day, every single day, and he's one of the funniest guys on the planet. Second skill that you're going to need that was required to discipline yourself is living a life of responsibility. How many people agree in corporate America, you can pretty much hide. You can go to work, as long as you're not your name's not on a board somewhere with a circle and a line through it, you're good, right? So they do just enough so you don't get fired, and they pay you just enough so you don't quit. And so it's really easy to hide and not give it your all and live below your potential. And then most of us, if we're to be totally honest, we live a life of blame. We blame our boss, we blame the government, we blame the finances, the economy, you name it, who's in office. But at the end of the day, here, you're responsible. And what's interesting is, I think the number one reason people don't stay with our business is they don't like that. There's nowhere to hide, because everywhere, again, you are. As my mom said, there you are. And so if you're not having the results that you want, people don't want to look in the mirror. It's too painful to change themselves, but that's what's required. And I have 3 mantras that I live by, and one of them is I'm responsible. And what that does for me, it empowers me. I'm no longer a victim. I'm responsible for all the choices that I've made up to this point. I'm responsible for my health, my finances, right? What I weigh. Because they're all the decisions that I made over time. I was there. I was responsible. No one had a gun to my head to make me do anything, spend that extra money on that credit card or misbehave. It was all my responsibility. Number 2 was my mentor, Craig Hepner, gave me these other 2. And I had them on a Post-it everywhere I was. And to this day, I still read them. And one is, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And every time I read that, it was inspiring. And the second one he had was, If my team did what I did today, what would my check look like? And sometimes that was scary, sometimes it was good, but I realized that was the most important thing. And so when I read that, it inspired me to go out and do the things that I needed to do. Oversimplified, you're like, okay, great, I'm willing to be disciplined, I'm willing to take responsibility. What the heck do I need to do to lead myself? Well, here, we're just gonna master the basics. And it's so great, we have the 10 core commitments. And you can find those at Ellis Engage, right there, go to resources and it'll be there. So that's not this training. But if I were to oversimplify the 10 core, there are things that you're in control of. They may stretch you a little bit, but these things are things you can do. The question is, will you do them? And the 3 things oversimplified are showing up, activity, as well as professional/personal development. So let's jump into them. Showing up. It's been said that we do 1 day a week, or evening, day, whatever you choose, 1 day a week, 1 Saturday a month, and a few weekends a year. That's something I could do. The question was, again, would I? And I realized that all the most successful people in the world, they basically had a vision, and they made the world bend to them. Henry Ford saw a world where there was no more horse and buggy, it was all motorized vehicles. You look at Gandhi, he saw a world where there was no more violence. Martin Luther King Jr. saw a world where everyone was equal. And what happened was their vision was they made the world bend to them. They saw a world that didn't exist yet. And I'm gonna ask you today to do the same thing for your future. I realized that I would have to make the hard decision once and then make the world bend to me. Let me give you a couple of examples. At the time, we were doing 1 night a week in person. And I started attending my weekly briefing. And what happened was all my friends started making fun of me. They'd be like, are you going to another one of those meetings again? Don't they say the same thing over and over again? You know, aren't you bored of that? And I would say to them, you know, don't you go to your job every day? Don't you have to do the same thing every day? Aren't you bored of that? And they would laugh and say touche. But here's what I know is they would say, hey, want to go to happy hour? It's on Wednesday. What about, do you want to go to this birthday party? How about a movie? How about a mixer? And every time I would say no, because I knew if I gave up one time and gave in to what they asked me to do, they would never respect me or my business, and it would be impossible for me to be able to go back. So I made the world bend to me. Now my friends are like, hey, let's go to happy hour. Oh, we know you don't do Wednesdays. So does Thursday work? And I was like, yes. That's what I mean by leading by example. Number 2 is 1 Saturday a month. You can do it. What happened was I missed a couple of family events. And eventually they said, you're serious about this business. Listen, we want to have a family reunion and we want to do it in August. What weekend works for you that you don't have one of your events? I was like, wow, this thing really works. Let me talk about the 2 events, the 2 weekends we do, which is your team retreat as well as your convention. And you know those dates well in advance. I took this so seriously. I was new in the business. I wasn't making a lot of money at the time. And my husband and I were engaged. Now, I asked him, that's a totally different story, not this conversation. We'll talk about that offline. But we were engaged. We had sent out save the date invitations. We had put a deposit down on a place. And I realized, oh my gosh, I've made a horrible mistake. Our team retreats that same weekend. And he said, are you nuts? Now listen, there's always a sale being made. I'm gonna sell him on why we're moving this date, or he's gonna sell me on why we're keeping it. And you know, I made that hard decision up front. And so it was not easy. It was a difficult conversation, but I said, honey, in the big scope of life, what difference does it really make what day that we're married on? You know, it wasn't significant in any way. He said, it really doesn't. I said, great. He said, Mom, my parents think you're insane. We lost the deposit. But at the end of the day, you know, being able to walk away from a career I didn't love, live a life of my dreams, work with amazing people, it was worth the sacrifice. And I gotta tell you, it's really fun. We've earned a lot of Performance Club trips being with the company. And one of them, well, they often land on our anniversary. So one of them, we were sitting there on this infinity pool with our arms up on the edge of the infinity pool, looking out over the ocean. There was this incredible cruise ship. The sun was setting, the music was playing. And I looked over to him and I said, happy anniversary, honey. He said, happy anniversary to you. And I said, aren't you glad we changed the date? And that probably wasn't a great thing to say because he pushed my head underwater, but it still worked out amazing. And so I love it. We now get an annual anniversary trip often as well. And so that's showing up. It's something you can do. You're 100% in control of where you are and physically in your body. And with Zoom, a lot of times you can cheat and get anywhere. So showing up, make that commitment to yourself. Number 2 is activity. Again, we're talking about the 10 core oversimplified. You know, doing your 2 a day, in my opinion, is the most important thing. And I gotta tell you, what's easy to do is easy not to do. And for me, just doing those 2 a day every single day, eventually I got into Performance Club. And eventually your results will show up. So the results might show up in you got a bonus, right? You qualified for Fast Start, you got your manager bonus, or you got into Performance Club, or you earned a trip. Eventually, if you stay in activity, right, boom, 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 it'll eventually show up in results, and you'll be worthy of being followed. It was funny. I said to my mentor, Craig Hepner, one day, I said, listen, is the key to this business just showing up and never leaving? And he said, part of it, but the second part is you've got to show up in activity. You can't be a permanent spectator. Who makes more money, the people in the stands or the people that are playing the game? We need you to get out of the stands and play the game. I'm going to go into this a little bit more later. The third thing that you're 100% control of is your personal development and your professional development. They say attitude is everything. Well, what if you don't have a great attitude? When I got started, I was a little bit of a cranky, corporate-y kind of manager type person. But I realized that over time, I didn't love that. It wasn't serving me. But I could read the books, listen to the audios, and I literally transformed. Listen, leadership is by design. It's not by chance. Your ability to be able to change your whole attitude and make yourself stronger is being intentional in this area. When we talk about reading 10 pages of a good book, listening to 15 minutes of an audio, how many people agree that's something that you can do? Absolutely. I didn't do anything different because I was working 80 hours a week at the time, but I did the things that I did differently. Let me give you an example. Instead of driving to work and listening to the radio, I turned on Drive Time University and listened to great audios. And now with YouTube and Audibles, the only reason you wouldn't be doing personal development is by choice. It's easy, it's everywhere. Then the second thing was, I'd go to bed at night and maybe scroll on my phone or the internet. Instead, I pick up a book and I read 10 pages of a good book right before I go to bed. I'm not doing anything different. It didn't take me any more time to be able to do these things. So these are things that you can do that aren't going to take a lot of time. And what started to happen over time was I got stronger. People would tell me no in the beginning and it would knock me out for, I don't know, a week. I'd be like crying and say, honey, they don't like me. He'd say, no, my husband would say, that's not what it means. It just means they didn't want to do the business. Then it got the time that I would have to recover from somebody who told me no got shorter and shorter. Now I'm going to be a little bit flip and just tell you when people don't get it, I think I can't fix stupid. You know what I mean? It changed a lot over time. But it changes you. The problems that used to take you out, you now can solve in a second. And I wish that for everybody. And listen, personal development is a little bit like the stock market, right? You're going to invest a little bit in every single day. And eventually, hopefully, you'll have tons of money at the end to be able to retire or do whatever you want to do with. Same thing with personal development. I'm going to ask you to invest a little bit in every single day. And this is something, again, that you can do. I got to share with you, these are all things that you can do to lead yourself, right? You've got to have discipline. You've got to be responsible. You've got to do these three things compounded over time so you get some results so that now people are going to want to follow you. And I have 10 closing thoughts. They're not really in any order, but I want to share these with you as well. You are not a manager of anyone but yourself. It was funny. When I got into this company, I had owned my own business. I had employees. I'd also been a manager at a place, and I was really accustomed to telling people what to do. Because listen, I had a paycheck over their neck. Do what I tell you to do, and that's it. That doesn't work with a voluntary army here in PPLSI. So I had to learn some skills, but I needed to be tough on myself. How many people agree that we're pretty easy on ourselves, right? It's easy to make up an excuse and not be able to do it. Number two is people would rather watch a leader than listen to one any time. They'd rather have you show versus tell. And this is why I love Performance Club. It'd be really difficult for me to sponsor someone in the business and they say, well, how do you write a membership? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you're the first one I've written in about a decade, but you should write a whole bunch of them and get in Performance Club. They'd be like, check, please, right? So why do I say that? Because you want to be able to lead by example. Number three, again, no in particular order here, I can't ask anyone to do what I'm not willing to do. That's called a job. How many people hated their boss because their boss would say, listen, you need to go clean the latrines, you need to make that last phone call, and they haven't done any of that in years and years and years because they're the boss. Here, we're not bosses of anybody. We're only bosses of ourselves, and we need to be a little bit hard on ourselves, but we need to be able to do the things that we're asking other people to do if we expect them to do it as well. And then number four is, listen, you're not going to be perfect. It's fine. I am so not perfect. I'm making mistakes all the time. I'm asking for feedback. I'm doing reviewing. But listen, you just want to be relatable. And I can't be relatable if I haven't done anything that I'm asking you to do. I know what it's like, to have your friends and family be mean to you. I know what it's like to have a lot of no's and struggle to get in Performance Club. I know what that is like because I've been there with you. I've done it with you. I've walked through the fire. Why? Now I can walk other people through it as well. You can't walk anybody off the ledge if you haven't been there yourself. And so just know that you're not going to be perfect, but all of those mistakes that you've been through too are going to make make you relatable to be able to help other people get to where they need to be. And number 5, we talked about this before. It's a process, right? Being able to lead yourself isn't a one and done. Like, hey, I did it today, I'm good, right? They always say you're gonna have, if you don't take a shower every single day, you're gonna start to stink. Well, you're gonna keep doing these things and lead by example every single day, or your business is gonna start to stink. So I tell you this to know that you are gonna be able to do this. Number 6, you can't, this business is really just about facing your fears, right? A lot of people quit because they're afraid to face their fears. You're never gonna, success isn't the absence of fear, it's the management of your fear. Let me give you a couple of examples. Every time I come to public speak, whether it's in front of a camera like this, or whether it's on stage, I have huge anxiety, huge fear. I sweat, I freak out, but you know what? I feel the fear and I do it anyway. It's not an absence of it. I gotta tell you, I managed my fear when it came to being a little bit embarrassed about being in network marketing. Trust me, I'm over it now. It's the best vehicle on the planet. But you're gonna have to manage some of those fears. Maybe somebody's gonna make fun of you because they don't understand our profession, right? What about talking to strangers? These are just a few fears that you're gonna have to overcome. What about the fear of rejection? And I wanna kind of turn that on its head, because I told you I would pick up the activity again a little bit later. I was very, very blessed to be asked to be featured to write a chapter in a book called Go for No for the Network Marketer. And in that chapter, I called it FUN, the Fundamental Understanding of Numbers. And this made rejection a lot better for me. Now, I've been very blessed over 15 years to make my first million, and then 5 years after that, make a second million. The reason I share with you is I wanted to know what my numbers were to the first million, right? Not very relative now to the second one, but to the first million, I did my numbers, and I knew my numbers because I kept track. And do you know that in 15 years, I actually asked and exposed and invited people to look 11,000 people. Now you might be going, whoa, 11,000? Well, do you know that 15 years times 365 days is about 5,500? If you take 11,000 into 5,500, do you know that's 2 a day? Not crazy? 2 a day, that's it. 7 days a week. That's what I committed to. Some days I did 1, some days I did 4, but on average it was 2 a day every day. Out of those 2 days, out of the 11,000, I wrote 1,300 memberships. It was pretty good. Would you guys agree? Right? About 9 out of 10 said yes, that saw it. Some people didn't see it, but out of the 11,000, I got 1,300. I was pretty excited about that. Now, I always aim to recruit and miss to sell memberships, so I show them both. But out of those 11,000, 1,300 got a membership. 300 of those became an associate. Now, listen, I'm not going to tell you they all did something. No, a lot of them did absolutely, positively nothing. But if you take 3,000 into a million, do you know that I made, or 300 into a million, I made $3,000 for every associate that I personally sponsored into the business. That was kind of exciting. So whether they did anything or they were a rock star, that's pretty exciting. Then I did the math to figure out, what about those 11,000 out of the 1,300 that told me no? Do you realize when I did the math on that, for every person that told me no, I made $100. I was like, heck yes, tell me no, come on my team, don't do anything. I'm excited because as long as you know your numbers, the fun of it, it makes rejection kind of fun. So turn it on your head, keep track of your numbers, and it'll make it, managing and facing your fears a lot easier. Number 7 on my closing thoughts is comparison. I remember coming in here and I would see somebody that came and shot off like a rocket, right? They'd make like 6 figures, 400 grand, 200 grand in their first year. And I would feel like a loser. I'd be like, I'm really trying. I'm really working hard here. What is wrong with me? And you know what I realized was my story was my story, their story was their story. There's something called 1357. And I'm gonna show you what that means. In the first year, you don't even know what you don't know. I didn't even know it was network marketing. So year 1, I was excited. I paid back everything. I made $500 a month. I paid for all my events. I was like, good. My second year, doing the same thing, didn't really do anything different. I made $14,000. That was great, right? By the third year, it was $6,000, $14,000, $37,000. That's like a car, right? I'm like, okay, that was part-time. By my 5th year, it was $98,000. By my 7th year, you're getting to be pretty world-class. So why do I tell you that? I can't compare myself against somebody else. What if, Darnell Self, who introduced me, he did his 1, 3, 5, 7 somewhere else, and he came in this company and had great success. I don't know the story behind the story. I don't know where they came from. I didn't even know it was network marketing for the first year. It's kind of hard to win in a game when you don't even know what you're playing. So I say all that to say, be kind to yourself. Allow yourself, if you really are doing, because all you can do is what Art Williams says, and if you're doing all you can do, then all you're doing is enough. Then don't beat yourself up. Trust me, the results will come as long as you don't quit and you're leading by example and doing these things. Be careful what you say to yourself. I mean, saying, I'm a loser, this thing isn't gonna work for me. We gotta be super careful because our subconscious is sneaky. It is always listening and trying to make that whatever we say to it true. That's why you've gotta keep doing the personal development. You gotta keep showing up to the events. You gotta keep pouring goodness into yourself so you can get out of that comparison. It's the thief of joy. Number 8 is, as Jim Rohn says, you're either gonna be a warning or an example. And which one would you like to be? For me, I wanted to be an example. I try to be an example in every area that I can possibly be in, whether it's fun or tithing or prospecting or health. In all areas, I love this business because you never arrive. You're always looking forward to being more of an example and being the best you can be. And I was asked this question once, and I'm going to ask you it. And this is what it means by being a warning or an example. Ask yourself, when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you say, would I want to be sponsored by me? And if the answer is yes, keep going. And if the answer is no, review this training. See some of the things that maybe we talked about. Maybe there's a tweak you can do. Because in the words of Nick Serber, we're either not doing something 100% right, and it's usually a 1% tweak, or we're not doing something enough. And typically, it's just not enough. And only you can answer that question for you. Only you can self-diagnose where you're at, why you're not leading by example. And then also excuses. I'm gonna tell you, we're famous with this, and they start with a yes, but. Yes, I know I should do my exposures, but. Yes, I should go to my Super Saturday, but. Yes, I should do this, but. And if you find yourself butting yourself, you should probably stop and say yes and figure out how you can do it versus excuses, how you can't do it. Because excuses are what's gonna hold you back forever. And the last gift I'm gonna give to you is the gift of consistency. I think consistency has been my superhero power. I wasn't the fastest out of the gate. I wasn't anything special. I'm still just doing my 2 a day. I'm still just trying to work on myself and be the best me I can be. Trust me, I'm a work in progress. But all I'm gonna tell you is I just keep doing the same things over and over again. And think about it, people can't follow somebody who's not consistent. If you're a roller coaster rider, right? One day you're like, woo, PPLSI forever, never doubted it for a minute. And then the next day somebody tells you, that's stupid, that's never gonna work. And you're like, oh. Right? You're never gonna be able to make it. So have consistency in your activity, your attitude, and your showing up, and you will be worthy of being followed. You'll be leading by example. Because in the words of Albert Einstein, setting example is not the main means of influencing others, it's the only means. And with that, take care, take charge. We'll see you over the top.